In the 1967 classic movie, Cool Hand Luke, a film with some surprising Christian themes, Paul Newman plays Luke, a convict on a chain gang, unfairly persecuted by the prison's warden. Throughout the story, the self-righteous but cruel warden simply can't or won't understand Luke, or see his goodness, or sympathize with his struggles. Rather, Luke is expected to conform to the warden's preconceived notions on what constitutes proper behavior. And this tension between the two culminates in a poignant standoff where one of the most memorable quotes in all of American cinema is uttered, when the warden says to Luke, "What we have here is a failure to communicate. Some men you just can't reach." Now, even if you've never seen this movie, you can well imagine the scene, because we've all experienced some version of this. Two people interacting, but largely talking past each other. Their radios tuned to different frequencies, neither seeing a reason to change the channel. But it's in those moments of prideful certainty, when we're locked into our own viewpoint and unwilling to adjust our dial, that we can miss our best opportunities for spiritual growth. This is exactly what we see happen in today's gospel as Pontius Pilate interrogates Jesus about his kingship. See, for Pilate, he thinks he has the definition of a king already worked out based on his experiences. "I know what a king is," says Pilate. "A king is clothed in purple robes and silk tunics. He is adorned with finery and a crown of gold. A king has armies with which he wields power. A king issues edicts, and his subjects obey, or else. And kingly power is exercised and aggrandized for one purpose, and one purpose only, for himself. Furthermore, a king travels with a vast entourage, and he lords it over the masses, served wherever he goes. And his people? Mere subjects, pawns on his chessboard, to be used and thrown away. Nothing more. Kings don't associate with the riffraff. Peasants know their place and stay outside the palace walls. And kingly succession stays within the royal family." Yeah, Pilate's got it all figured out. But Pilate can't reconcile all of that with this humble and quiet prisoner, this Jesus of Nazareth, who stands before him bound in irons and dressed as a commoner. This Galilean vagrant, rejected by his own people. He can't possibly be a king. And yet Pilate is intrigued, drawn to the mystery. Somehow he already knows the answer, but still he asks the question, "Are you a king?" Now, Jesus isn't evading Pilate's questions. He simply isn't going to conform his answer to what Pilate's preconceived notions of what true kingship is. Rather, Jesus, with his clever replies, challenges Pilate to cast off his earthly biases and reimagine the very meaning of divine monarch. Think differently, Pilate. Think big. But in this momentous exchange lies a terrible misfortune, a lost opportunity if there ever was one. Pilate just couldn't bring himself to think differently, to embrace the truth standing right before him. See, the real tragedy of Pilate is not so much that he condemned our Lord and washed his hands of him. The tragedy is that Pilate could not or would not see past his own narrow definitions in not seeing who God really is and what God can truly do. Pilate's great error was his failure of imagination. On this solemnity of Jesus Christ, King of the universe, it's important that we see Pilate's mistake so that we don't repeat it ourselves, because there's a little bit of Pilate in all of us, where we misunderstand and mischaracterize our King, his nature, his purpose, his plans for us, and our level of trust in him. We place human interpretive limits on the divine, and it's crucial that we get this right, which means I need to truly listen, reimagine, think differently, think big. So instead of me tuning him out and pridefully sticking to my own channel, where frankly all I hear is static and noise anyways, let me change my frequency so as to better hear his message. For when I tune into his channel, using prayer and the sacraments as my transmitter and receiver, and let his grace touch me, then I hear him loud and clear. And with that grace, I start to get it. I avoid Pilate's mistake entirely, and I begin to reimagine the king. And immediately I see it. This is no mere king, with fancy clothes and extravagant accoutrements, power exercised on a whim. That's a human interpretation. This is the King of Kings, creator of all, robed in majesty and splendor. His infinite power is used for one purpose, in loving service to us and his creation. And he does this perfectly. Let me also reimagine the rules and edicts of this king. His laws and decrees are not arbitrary and capricious, and they're not designed to control you or ruin your fun or hem you in. Au contraire, mon ami, they are designed to liberate you. Fashioned out of love, these rules are devised to break the chains that bind you and set you free. For all of us, in some way, shape, or form, are prisoners, slaves to earthly desires and passions, encumbered by pride and limited by human intellect. We are on our own chain gang, you and I, in leg irons, movements restricted, mindlessly breaking rocks on the roadside. But this king is a king of mercy and justice who seeks to free you from all of that. Let him, by cooperating with his grace. Let me also reimagine the kingdom, and I immediately see it. There are no imperial courts, no royal household, no inner sanctum. There are no lords or serfs, and nobody is excluded from this king. No, you and I are adopted members of the royal family. You are a beloved prince or princess of the realm. You have title. You have full citizenship in a kingdom of infinite perfection where we will reign with him forever. And that full inheritance awaits those who hope and trust in that promise. You know, a miraculous thing happens when God gives us the grace to reimagine the king. We begin to reimagine ourselves. For we can't help but be changed for the better and yearn for closer contact when we understand who he really is and what he really offers. Because when I finally see his greatness, I want to bow down in awestruck praise and thanksgiving. When I finally see his infinite love, I come to realize that I'm worthy of that love, but that I must also humbly change and do a better job reflecting that love onto others. That crucial part is on me. I receive, but I must also in turn give. When I come to better understand his kingdom, then I never want to ever miss Mass. Because I come to realize that the Eucharist is the nearest thing to the heavenly kingdom that we have here on earth. And what? I'm going to deny myself that perfect heavenly banquet so I can go do something else on a Sunday? No way, no how. Once you know, you change. And you change for the better because you emulate the king. When I see how his rules break the chains that bind me, then I begin to be honest with my former self. That yes, I can set aside my pride and my poor excuses and listen for once. That yes, I can replace obstinance with obedience, and that I can do better. See, only by reimagining myself and reorienting toward my king can I clear that final hurdle, the one that Pilate never could, to embrace the truth that stands before me. That's what our king wants, for you and for me. Our only question now is, do we have faith that our king can actually do these things for us and more? So, can he? Well, Cool Hand Luke knew the answer to that question. The interesting thing about Cool Hand was that he was housed in cell block 1 and was prisoner number 37. Luke, chapter 1, verse 37. For nothing will be impossible for God. And if you take but one message away from his kingship today, please let it be that. Because with God, there is never, ever a failure to communicate.